Good evening. This is Roger Santos from New York and magandang umaga sa mga kababayan natin sa Pilipinas. Welcome to our COVID Talks with Maria Leonora Herona Robredo, Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines, together with my co-host, Cristina Pastor, a multimedia journalist, and she is the founding editor of the PhilAm newspaper and digital magazine. She is also the co-founder and co-host of Makilala TV, show which is produced by Manhattan Neighborhood Network. The other one is Elton Lugay, correspondent at Inquirer.net and reporter at the PhilAm, and owner and founder of the Outstanding Filipinos of America. And our host station, PHLB Radio from Las Vegas. The objective of the talk today is to present VP Leni's initiative during these pandemic times and the recent typhoon that have struck the Philippines. I have been collaborating and working with VP Leni through each Angat Buhay program for the last 3 years. And VP Leni and I share the same values in helping our kababayan. And at this time, I would like to turn over to VP Leni for her opening remarks and before we do our Q&A. VP?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good morning here in the Philippines. Magandang gabi sa ating mga kababayan sa Amerika. Just to give you context of what the Office of the Vice President has been doing. Under our Constitution, the Vice President doesn't have any mandate except succession. Traditionally, the Vice President performs ceremonial roles. But when I took my oath in 2016, I told my staff that we can't do 6 years just performing ceremonial roles. So we decided to reinvent the office already from a mere ceremonial one into a more advocacy-heavy office. That was when we launched Angat Buhay. So I took on June 30 of 2016. We launched Angat Buhay in October. And Buhay is really, reinventing the office in such a way that the office will perform a sort of a conduit, the role of a conduit between communities needing help and private organizations wanting to help. That is the reason why we formed Angat Buhay, because if you are familiar with the Office of the Vice President in the Philippines, not only do we have a limited budget, we also have one of the smallest budgets in the entire bureaucracy. So if we wanted to do a lot of things related to our advocacy, we would not have funds for that. That is why we positioned our office as a sort of a bridge between communities needing help and partners who want to help. That was how we met Roger. We met Roger because when he learned about Angat Buhay, he visited us here and asked how they can be of help. Oh. So since 3 years ago, Roger and his group has been helping us in many different ways already. We have had a lot of partnerships already. Under Angat Buhay, we have 6 key advocacy areas: universal healthcare, public education, rural development, nutrition, hunger and nutrition, women empowerment, and housing. So those are the key advocacy areas of Angat Buhay. And what we do is we adopt communities that are very poor. These are communities who do not have the funds to, implement programs on their own. So when we adopt communities, we present to our partners the data of these communities and their needs. We do needs assessment, and after the needs assessment, that's when we link our partners with the communities that we've chosen. So it's been 4 years already since we launched Angat Buhay. And we have been very successful in the sense that we started with only 50 communities and we're in more than 400 now. And these are the smallest, the farthest, the poorest of communities. And that is also the reason why we have been involved in a lot of disaster, post-disaster, pre- and post-disaster operations. Because when disaster strikes, we make it a point to fill in the gaps. We go where, where there is a need. There have been a lot of instances where, my example is COVID operations, but we will be discussing that later. But
I think we will get into that.
Yeah, that
one
is
of the questions that we will be asking.
That is how we have positioned our office. So just providing context, it's very different in the US. Because in the US, the Vice President is the presiding officer of the Senate. But in the Philippines, the Vice President does not have, any real mandate aside from succession, except if the President appoints the Vice President to a cabinet post. So if the President does not appoint the Vice President to a cabinet post, then the Vice President will just be merely performing ceremonial roles. So that is why we have Angat Buhay.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, so what the agenda for today is we'll talk about, the current typhoon first. We'll talk about the COVID-19 and the third one is just about our current state in the US with Biden and Kamala. Now I'd like to turn over to Christina to start the question.
Good morning, Vice President Leni. I know our topic today is supposed to be COVID, but because of the recent typhoon that caused massive destruction and evacuation, I'd like to know how the OVP, your office, is helping people get back on their feet.
In the recent month or so, we've had several typhoons, and
one after the other.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Three of them very strong. The strong ones are Quinta, Raleigh, and Ulysses. So when Quinta was about to strike, our office has already developed, we have been very nimble, we have been very agile. So even before Quinta struck, we started preparing for our relief operations already. So when Quinta struck, it was Bicol that was most devastated. We went to Bicol to do relief operations already. But then when we were doing relief operations in Bicol, Raleigh already struck. So Raleigh was much, much stronger than Quinta. So we expanded our relief operations. In fact, last week, I was there for the entire week. I only got back during the weekend. I was there. I went to Catanduanes, I went to Albay, and the many coastal towns in the Camarines areas, trying to assess what the needs of the communities are. And most of the needs are really food, shelter. So we have been giving relief food packs. We have been giving materials for them to rebuild their houses. We have been strengthening our livelihood program, especially for the farmers and fisher folk. But then, as we were doing the relief operations for Raleigh, Ulysses struck, and the damage of Ulysses is so much more than Raleigh, even if Raleigh was the strong one. Because I think with Raleigh, we were able to prepare. We were able to prepare in the sense that there was a sufficient warning. We were warned days ahead of how strong the typhoon will be. Of course, in the rural areas, devastation was still massive, especially in Catanduanes and some parts of Albay and Camarines Sur. But then our problem with Ulysses is that it was totally unexpected. We knew that a storm was coming, but we were being assured that it was not as strong as Raleigh. We were being the forecasts were saying that it will strike Polillo Islands in Quezon.
Yeah.
So while Quezon was quite prepared because there was expectation Bicol was not,
Mm.
because Bicol was not in the path of Ulysses, even way before the typhoon struck, and Metro Manila was also not prepared. So when Ulysses struck, there was a lot of rain, and when there is a lot of rainfall, the floods come, and that was what was very difficult here in Metro Manila. As I've said, I arrived here during the weekend. It was good that I left my team in Bicol, because when Ulysses struck, our team was still there. But then when it struck Manila, there was severe flooding in many areas, especially in Marikina. In Marikina, in many parts of Rizal, particularly Montalban and Cainta, in Bulacan, in Quezon also, and of course in the Bicol region and Aurora. And right now, there is severe flooding in Cagayan.
Yeah, so that's part of Ulysses too?
Yes, it's part of Ulysses. Ulysses did not, Ulysses was not a direct, Cagayan was not a direct hit of Ulysses, but because the rain bands were very large, a lot of rainfall, and we know Magat Dam is in Cagayan. So Magat Dam has been releasing water because it has reached its critical level already. And with the rivers, Cagayan River swollen, and Magat Dam releasing water, Cagayan is severely flooded now. So we were doing relief and rescue operations. I did not sleep the entire night.
Yeah, I think I saw your Facebook post about that.
Yes.
Just a quick follow-up, Vice President. Has the national government been helping, supporting you financially through all these projects? No.
No. Aside from our budget, we don't get support from the national government. But I always tell this to our staff, and I tell this to our partner. It's the way it is, and we cannot allow this hindrances to get in the way of the work that we want to do. So what we do is, with the limitations as far as help from national government is concerned, we are able to do to push for our advocacies from partnerships with the private sector. But we do get support from provincial branches of national government agencies.
Okay.
For example, we're doing a big farmers program in Camarines Sur. We call it Umasenso sa Kabuhayan, and DTI, DA, DAR, DOST has been helping us. But these are the regional and provincial offices of this agency. So from experience, the local counterparts of the national government agencies have been very cooperative.
That's good. Okay, thank you. And now let's switch now to Elton. We'll talk about COVID-19. Elton.
Okay po. Thank you, Kuya Roger. And magandang umaga po, Vice President Leni. Thank you po for granting us this interview. For my first question po, according to the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, the COVID-19 pandemic could push 1.5 million Filipinos into poverty, ma'am. Can Angat Buhay po help prevent this from happening po?
We can only do so much. But we've already launched several programs to combat unemployment. For example, we partnered with a private organization and we launched ckap.ph. It's an online jobs matching site for blue-collar workers. Right now, we have 20,000 jobs available already. About 8,000 have been hired already through our platform. It's continuing to grow. With regards to entrepreneurs, and when I say entrepreneurs, we're talking about the small ones, the rural women, the small budgeted small businesses, we also launched an online platform. It's called iskaparate.com. And the reason
about that, yeah.
yes,
It's like an e-commerce site, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're partnering with a private organization also with that, because our fear is that the smaller businesses won't have the capacity to have online presence. And you know that in the Philippines, the lockdown has been for 9 months already. And everyone is selling online. Everyone is transacting online already. And if we don't help these entrepreneurs, the very small ones, maiiwan talaga sila. Our problem is that baka this is the gap between the rich and the poor will be will even be wider because of the lack of capacity of the smaller ones to to adapt. So that's the second thing that we're doing as far as combating unemployment is concerned. The third one is we partnered with USAID. It's like an apprenticeship program for out of school youth. It's an apprenticeship program for out of school youth. We're sponsoring 1,000 young people, out of school youth, so that they can be trained new skills and they can be hired after. So it's a very new program. We launched it, I think, 2 weeks ago. Recruitment is currently happening already. But we want to do more. We want to do more. We know how, the third quarter growth results were just published. And it's a negative 11.7, 11.5 for us. And we're the worst performing country in the ASEAN. During the second quarter, we were negative 16%. We were hoping we would be much better during the third quarter, but it's still a negative 11. And it's a sore point actually for me on a very personal level, and for many other Filipinos, because one example is Vietnam. Vietnam was able to quell the transmission of COVID early enough. So even during the time of the pandemic, Vietnam still posts a positive growth. And Vietnam was one of the few countries who were able to post a positive growth despite the pandemic. So the reason why I feel very bad about it, because I feel like we should have done better. Because of our performance as far as responding to the pandemic is concerned, the economy is suffering. And we know that when the economy suffers, it is the poorest of the poor, the marginalized who get it worst. So it's something that again we cannot dwell on just criticizing. So we're doing a lot of things as far as the office is concerned, and those are our contributions. We have, when COVID-19 struck Manila in March, what we did was, we had a management meeting already. We looked at our 2020 budget, and we already told ourselves, look, our programs which were planned last year and which are about to be implemented this year, which of this can wait till next year, so that we can, reappropriate our funds, for our small funds for COVID-related or disaster-related operations. And it has paid. It has paid off, in the sense that while we're very much dependent on private partnerships, the small amount that we have in our budget, we are able to use it in things that are not being covered by private partnerships. Because when you partner, most of your partners also have advocacies of their own. Right. So your programs will be based on the programs of your partners. Some partners like Roger, for example, Roger's group has been very flexible for us. You know, we present them, we send them a list of the programs that we want to do, and they choose which among the programs to adopt. So it has been very, very beneficial to the communities we're helping. So yun.
Yeah, share ko lang yung last what we had, you know, the whole family got COVID, you know, and it's really thankful. And I'll show you a slide because this is one of the program of Angat Buhay, which is yung feeding program.
And also the community learning hub.
Yeah, this one is the we donated 1 ton of chicken. This is for our Thanksgiving with the family, our family to you know, so for surviving COVID. And the next slide is we partnered to and trained with VP and his staff yung community learning hub. I think it's good time to explain VP yung this is in Dalahican, ano? So we partner. I have a couple of friends who donated computers too, and the family donated because most of my son have businesses too in the Philippines. So I think this is a good segue, BP, to go ahead.
Roger, just to give them an idea of the 2 pictures you presented. Yeah. The first one, it was not just a feeding program. It was not just a feeding program in the sense that when we do the feeding programs, we don't do the usual. When we do feeding programs, we try to make sure that where we source the food that we will give, we're also helping the one we're sourcing from. For example, chicken, we've been giving also vegetables, and we've been giving vegetables to farmers, from farmers who are not able to sell their produce anymore because of the lockdown. Even rice, traditionally we've been buying rice from NFA, but during this pandemic and during the typhoon operations, we would look for partners where we can buy rice directly from, if they can, if they can sell us the NFA price. And it has been very helpful in the sense that you're doing 2 things at the same time. You know, feeding people and making sure that your suppliers would also benefit from the activity that you're doing. But this community learning hubs, we're so inspired with this because, you know, when DepEd announced that it will already shift to blended learning, the first thing that we did was start a gadget donation drive. Because, you know, a lot of very poor children do not have access to gadgets. So we were thinking, let's solicit old gadgets. We also solicited help from computer technicians so that old gadgets which needed repair, you know, will be repaired by our computer technicians. But as we were doing the gadget donation drive already, we realized that the problems were so much more than gadgets. We realized that problems would be so much more than gadgets. For example, one problem was a lot of teachers are not computer literate. A lot of teachers are not computer literate. A lot of parents who will be teaching their kids at home do not have the capacity to teach their children. So what we did was we produced videos. We produced instructional videos for teachers and for parents. These are not for students because DepEd is already producing for students. So we've produced, I think, 24 videos already. These instructional videos we made in partnership with ad agencies, in partnership with the UP School of Education, who was in charge of the substance and the scripts. The ad agencies and creatives, donated their time, talent, and equipment in producing the video. So we were able to produce instructional videos with no expense from us. But this third thing, community learning hubs, we decided to do this because from our interviews with parents and students also, their problem is that, it's like homeschooling their kids. But not all parents have the capacity to homeschool the kids. Teachers will be sending modules. The modules will be available online, but then if they are available online, most of the kids don't have gadgets of their own. And if they're sent modules, most of the parents of poorer kids do not have the capacity to teach their children at home. So the concept of the community learning hubs is that they have a place in the community where they can go, walking distance, where they can go on schedule, they can have access to computers, they would have access to learning materials, but the most important thing is there are tutors available all the time. There are tutors available all the time. And I have visited 4 already. I have visited 4 community learning hubs already, the one in Pasig, the one in Taytay, the one in San Jose, Camarines Sur, and the one in Tabaco, Albay. They have been performing extremely well. In the sense that when you get to talk to parents of children using the community learning hubs, they are very grateful that there are tutors who can teach their children when they cannot. For example, when we went to Pasig, nakasabay ko doon one parent of 2 kids. And she was telling us, "Ma'am, buti na lang ginawa niyo to kasi nagtitinda kami mag-asawa ng buko. Nagtitinda kami ng buko, naglalako kami. We're not at home, from morning till night. And we were so afraid with the shift because no one would be teaching the kids at home." Yeah. So the community learning hub was a heaven sent. Mm-hmm. And stories are the same all throughout. Na many children are non-readers. There are 5th graders who are non-readers, and that's scary. So
what do you mean by non-readers?
Hindi talaga nagbabasa, hindi marunong magbasa.
Hindi marunong magbasa.
Kahit Tagalog words, kahit Tagalog books?
No.
Hindi talaga marunong magbasa.
Delay
so right now, our shift is every Friday would be devoted to all non-readers. We're doing a special program. We're doing a trainers training. The ones who will train our tutors will be yung UP College of Education. They will train our tutors how to teach non-readers. Ang sabi ko nga, sa dami ng non-readers sa ating community learning hubs, matutunan lang nilang magbasa at the end of the pandemic would be a big accomplishment already for us.
How do they move on to the next grade? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I don't know. They just move.
Sabi ko nga,
it happens in other countries.
Sabi ko nga, if the silver lining here is we were able to discover what is utterly lacking in our education and system.
That's right.
Pero that's how we operate. That's how we operate. As I've said earlier, we try to be nimble, we try to be flexible, we try to be agile. We don't want to compete with what government is already doing. Mm-hmm. We want to go where the gap is.
That's it.
Ginagawa namin. I was in fact scheduled to go last Monday.
Lucena.
Tuesday of last week. In Dalahican. Pero nag-rolly, nag-typhoon.
I know. I think what I have seen, that's why I was following, because of the donation and the teaching. I think this is the best alternative in terms of helping our kids and students. Okay. Elton, do you have a...
Yes, very quickly lang po, Madam VP. Konting backstory lang po, if you don't mind. What made you choose Angat Buhay po as your contribution to the country's continuing fight against poverty?
Kasi siguro, my previous background, Elton, has a lot to do with what I wanted to do when I was VP already. for more than a decade, I was involved in a legal resource NGO. It's called Saligan. It's short for Sentro ng Alternatibong Linga Panlegal. It's an NGO of lawyers. And what we're doing is, it's called, the technical term for it is alternative lawyering. But it's actually it's actually going to the communities, to the very poor communities, educating the sectors. We were dealing with farmers, fisherfolk, urban poor, laborers, IPs, women and children. Yung pinaka-essence niya is the belief that when these sectors know their rights under the law, they will be in a better position to fight for their rights. So for 10 years, that's what we have been doing. My area was Bicol. So what we were doing, Elton, was we were translating relevant laws. When I say relevant to the sector. We were translating relevant laws to the dialect. And we were training the sectors to be paralegals. Because most of them do not have access to lawyers. And they can't fight for their rights. Marami sa kanila naaapi. Many of them are being abused, halimbawa ng landowners. Farmers were being abused by, they're merely farm laborers. So that was what I was doing for more than 10 years. And I thought that was my life's mission until my husband died.
I know.
Thank you, VP.
When I lost my husband, I cannot do it anymore. Because I had a 6th grader for a daughter who was still, the 2 others were in Manila already because college na sila. Pero I cannot do the community work anymore because my youngest daughter won't have someone with her. So that was when I got out of that kind of work. Pero when I became VP, I felt like I needed to continue what I was doing before. Not just a lawyer anymore, but as a government official who has a platform, to change things, who has a platform to push for the advocacies we believe in. And Angat Buhay was it was the product of that yearning to be able to continue the work that I was doing before. And si Roger has joined us in many of our missions. Si Roger makakasabi, it has been very, very beneficial.
Yeah, very, very fruitful talaga. Pagka nandun ka na sa ground, you have to be in the ground to feel it. Yeah.
Oo. Kasi ang pinupuntahan namin, these are communities na ang feeling nila nakalimutan na sila.
I know.
From forsaken community.
Nakalimutan na sila. I think si Roger was with us in Sumilaw. You were with us, Roger, no? In Sumilaw.
No, I was there yung medical mission natin sa
Marawi.
Marawi. Then we went to Bukidnon.
Yes, yun yan.
Sumilaw. Yeah.
Example lang ng ginagawa namin. The project that Roger did in Sumilaw was they built a dormitory. They built a dormitory inside a public high school. It's in the middle of a pineapple plantation.
Oh.
Children have to walk 3 hours each way every day.
And it's dirt road. Really.
Dirt road. So when we built the dormitory, children do not have to go home every day anymore. So they go Monday morning or Sunday evening. They are in the dormitory the entire week. And after school on Friday, they go home again. And the reason why we built that in Sumilaw, Bukidnon, was that dropout rate was very high for high school students. And the reason for the high dropout rate was that children have to walk very, very far just to school. So talagang yung natitira, yung desidido lang mag-aral. Yung mga hindi desidido mag-aral, drop out during the school year. So with the dormitory, the improvement in keeping children in school has been very dramatic.
I think it's a good experience really yung Sumilaw. Switch ko lang kay Christina to
VP, Lenny, I'd like to go back to the COVID numbers. No, I'm reading 7,700 deaths, 405,000 cases. So, what are your challenges? Is it hard to get people to wear masks or to limit social interaction? What are the problems? Why the numbers going up?
If you look at the surveys, there has been a number of surveys already, and these are international surveys. Filipinos are actually one of the most law-abiding as far as following protocols are concerned. For example, there has been a study as to the mobility of people during the quarantine, and I think the Philippines is number two. Number two, who was less mobile. Number two in the world.
We stayed home.
Yes.
We stayed home.
Merong mga matitigas ang ulo. Hindi maiiwan. I think in general, that's not the case.
Yeah.
I think our problem in the Philippines is that we did not act swiftly enough.
Okay.
Early on, yeah.
Our first cases end of January. And February, we were already patting our backs that we did best practice as far as COVID-19 is concerned, because we had, after the 2 cases, we didn't have any more. But I felt like the lessons from around the world should have taught us already that was the time to prepare. But we did not do anything February. And then we had a spike in March. By the time we had a spike in March, because it caught us flat-footed, the transmission was bad. The transmission was bad. We lost a lot of doctors. We lost a lot of healthcare personnel. And that was because, we had our first cases in January, but March, we did not have PPEs.
When you said we lost doctors, you meant they died of COVID?
Yes, they died of COVID. We lost, I think we lost more than 20 doctors. And this was in March and April, when I think we did not know yet how to properly treat COVID. But if they were protected enough, that would not have happened. But despite the fact that we had cases already in January, in March, it was unbelievable that we were not prepared with PPE sets. Only RITM was testing. We were limiting testing to only those who were symptomatic. So there were a lot of asymptomatic patients going around. So we were not able to control transmission. IATF was organized. IATF is like your what do you call it? CDC?
Something like
CDC, yeah, CDC.
Centers for Disease Control.
But there has been a lot of criticisms as to the composition of the IATF. There are many generals in the IATF, not enough health experts. I don't have anything against these generals, because these are very, very good generals. These are military officers who have really performed well. But, I think what was lacking was the balance. The balance and the composition. Because, the lens that you will be using, if there are a lot of military men and less health experts, the lens you're using is enforcement. The lessons from China, the lessons from the US, the lessons from Italy, would tell us that the health lens should be the basis of policies. We felt like there were a lot of policies which were not data driven. We have a lot of very good policy people, but it was not as inclusive. And despite the fact that our agencies have been doing their share, I think what we lacked was somebody who was conducting the harmonizing everything. Because, the agencies have been working in silos. They were doing their part. About DOH, there has been a lot of criticism on DOH, but I think DOH has been doing its part. Another agency would be doing its part, but what they were doing were not in harmony with each other. So there have been a lot of times when this particular cabinet secretary would do a press conference declaring this particular data, another one will contradict what the other one was saying. So I think it somehow eroded, the opportunities that were there in the first place.
There was a lot of politics.
It's hard to say.
There was a lot of missed opportunities.
Okay.
That's the safe answer. There were a lot of missed opportunities in the sense that, we were given headway. For example, after the first two cases, we were pushing for testing already, but there was still a lot of debate on whether to test more, to test less. And we were already saying that, the examples of Singapore, of Taiwan, of South Korea, they were very, very successful in stopping the transmission of COVID. And we were saying that we should learn from the lessons of these countries already. The best practices, the missed opportunities also of other countries. Pero parang hindi nagawa eh. And I think yung lesson talaga sa COVID is if transmission is out there already, it's double the work.
Right.
It's double the work. It should have been done during the first instance. And when it was not done during the first instance, mahirap na. For example, as early as I think April, we were targeting 30 tests a day already. We were able to achieve 30 tests end of September lang. And we had targets already. Halimbawa, Mayor Benji Magalong, who did a very good job in Baguio, was appointed testing czar. Contact tracing czar. He had very good plans. But, he was not able to achieve. He was not able to achieve his targets. And I think he was very frustrated in the way that he was not able to do so because I think he was not able to get the utmost cooperation of everyone. They were saying they would be hiring this much contact tracers, but up to this time, we are nowhere near the target. Halimbawa, April, IATF already came out with a memorandum that we will be using this contact tracing app, but it was never used. It's never already. So, yung mga ganon, yun yung naging problema with the COVID response.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Elton, I need to switch some topics now to the last item. Elton, you want to start?
Which one kuya? Yung
I think
the last final question, or
No.
do we have time for a couple more?
Yes.
I have until 10 o'clock.
Okay.
That's until 11 o'clock.
I have
11
another
minutes.
event at 10.
Okay.
No, Elton, I think I should ask first because your question
Sure.
is related to mine, no?
Sige po.
Sige, VP Leni, I understand that you congratulated President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. What do you think will the new leadership mean for the relations between the U.S. and the Philippines?
I think the election of President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris into office will strengthen the ties between our two countries in the sense that, we have shared values. And these are values of, human rights, empowerment of women. We share a lot of values with the U.S., which were kind of eroded in the recent past. And I think a lot of Filipinos in the Philippines were relieved of the results of the elections in the sense that they most of us feel that there is so much in store as far as strengthening the relations is concerned. There has been a lot of it was kind of a roller coaster relationship in the past few years. And this started even when President Obama was still in office, when some officials of the US government were quite critical of the human rights abuses or reports of corruption of the present administration. And there was cancellation of visa of some of the some government officials. There was a threat to cancel the visiting forces agreement. So those things. Right after the announcement of the successful election of President-elect Biden, there was already an announcement from the DFA, our DFA from Secretary Locsin, that the suspension of the visiting forces agreement will be put to a halt because there was already a statement even from the president that there were a lot of things that there are a lot of frictions. Our present administration has been quite sensitive about criticisms coming from the foreign community. But their election would signal that the shared values will be upheld. There has been a lot of I don't know if you feel this in the US, but with Filipinos visiting the US, there has been a lot of anxiety as far as anti-immigrant sentiment is concerned. During the time of COVID, anti-Asian sentiment is concerned. So with the ones, a lot of people heaved a sigh of relief. It's as if they were being assured that particular sentiment won't continue anymore. Of course, it's early days. It's early days, but that's a general feeling, and we are very hopeful. We are very hopeful. We're excited with the change. The US has been our most dependable partner, and a lot of things can be achieved if the relations was stronger. Because in the recent past, there have been there were grants which were canceled.
Mm-hmm.
There were grants which were canceled. There are a lot of other things that are being said against each other. But we think that will improve under the leadership of President-elect Biden.
Thank you. And we got 6 minutes. Elton, the last question.
Sorry, pwedeng bumalik ako dun sa previous item. Madam VP, we hear many stories po of Filipinos not getting appropriate medical treatment because they do not have health insurance or out-of-pocket cash for the hospital and doctor's fees. Now, we know po Angat Buhay has been doing several medical missions, but does your office po ba have any program that would enable the sick to get immediate medical treatment regardless of financial status po?
Yes, we actually have a medical assistance program, and this is a program which I have inherited from the previous vice presidents. We were not the ones who initiated it. The only thing I did was to put more money in it. So it's a medical program that's been our most popular program in the sense that people are aware of it already even before I became vice president. So when people get sick and they need assistance as far as hospital bills is concerned, as far as medicines are concerned, they go to our office. In fact, during my time, we have devised a way already where they don't have to line up in our offices anymore. We have partnerships with hospitals already. where it's sort of a guarantee. It's a guarantee that we will pay the hospital bills of those who cannot pay. So it's something that it's ongoing, but I'm still not satisfied with how things are going, in the sense that the COVID statistics would show that of the 7,000 deaths, almost 50% of that, almost 50% of the deaths were of patients which were not hospitalized.
Mm.
So these were people who never saw a doctor. These were people who were never given medical intervention. And that says a lot about the kind of healthcare system that we have. Because, even if people feel sick, they don't want to be confined to hospitals. They don't even agree to being swab tests. Because they feel like they would not have the capacity to pay hospital bills. The universal healthcare bill has already been passed into law, and it's about to be rolled out. And one of the features of the universal healthcare law is really focus on primary healthcare, focus on localizing everything. Because the advantage of localizing everything is that people would have more access to it. The only problem with that is that during the time of President Cory Aquino, health has been devolved to the local government units already. But there has been a lot of disconnect, in the sense that there are local government units who do not have the capacity to improve their healthcare system. So it's been very difficult. But with the passing of the universal healthcare law, a lot of funds, a lot of resources, a lot of capacity building should be allocated to local government units, making sure that local government units have the right equipment in their barangay healthcare centers, because right now there's none. The luckier ones are those in the cities, but those in the rural areas, really, even if they have access to the barangay health centers, there's nothing there.
Okay.
No medicines available, etc., etc. Roger would know that. They have been, for example, we have a partnership with children who are differently able, and Roger and his team has been giving these children equipment so that they don't have to go to hospitals anymore. We're giving nebulizers, we're giving other things that they would need, because some children would be carried by parents to the hospitals just to have them nebulized.
We got 1 minute.
You have been helping them.
Yeah.
Thank you. We got 1 minute, so let me just do the closing. Okay, Christina, Elton.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Again, thank you, BP, for our show today, and thank you from our co-host, Elton, Christina, and our station PHLB. And I think just to close it, and I said earlier about our values, BP, and I said it I think when I was talking in our Maryland event, I said it's about some quote from Mother Teresa. It's not about how much you do, but how much love you put into what you do that counts, right? And amen to that. And I'd like to give it to you, VP Len, to give us a closing statement to our kababayan here in the United States.
Ako, Roger, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our kababayans in the US, who have been very generous of themselves to many of the things that our kababayans here in the Philippines are going through. I know, aside from Roger and his group, there are a lot of Filipino Americans who have been helping in ways that we can imagine. And that's a sign that even if you're far away, you are still with us. You are still with us. You have been helping all our needs. For example, even with computers, we have been receiving old computers from not just from Roger, but from many other Filipino Americans. So I think I would just like to let everyone know how appreciative we are. How appreciative we are of your generosity and of looking back to where you came from. Angat Buhay is really the concept of bayanihan. It's collaboration and bayanihan in its truest form. And what you're doing is really pakikipagbayanihan to our kababayans who are less fortunate, to our kababayans who need help. So thank you very much. We are very much open to more partnerships from many different groups in the US. We are very transparent with how we spend, how we give things. In fact, we have been encouraging our partners to join us every step of the way as we go to communities, so that not only would they know where their money was spent, but when you go to communities, you develop a sort of empathy. You develop empathy, and it's something that cannot be taught. It's something that cannot be taught. So if you have, Filipino Americans who would want to send their children here for the summer, can volunteer for us. We've had volunteers like that already. And it's something that, it's a kind of a gift that you bring with you all throughout your life. So we're very much open to welcome everyone. But thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for never forgetting your fellow Filipinos back home.
Okay.
Thank you, VP Leni, for answering all our questions.
Thank you, and good night for the US. And good morning again sa ating Pilipinas, mahal nating bayan.
Mag-iingat po kayo.
Thank
you.
VP, 1 second.
Yes.
Okay.